This is the Makerviews podcast. Welcome to the show.
Can come along for the ride if you want to.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Scott Matson, the founder of Makerviews and the host of the Makerviews podcast. I'm really excited to be introducing this season called The Music Makers. A little bit of background here. I started Makerviews in 2017. Makerviews, obviously short for Maker Interviews. It's led me to meeting so many amazing people, makers, artists, brands, and so on. It's always been a one-person passion project, and I do all of this on top of my full-time work and being a husband and partner and just trying to enjoy life out here in Western Montana. This year, it's 2024 now, I made a transition in my work. I've followed a passion of mine, and it led me into purchasing and taking over ownership of Missoula, Montana's longest running recording studio called The Recording Center. So I'm tuning in from here, recording from here. I'd been partnering with the original owner on work here for the past year, and I'm thrilled to be making things again myself, recording, engineering, producing, mixing, mastering, editing, working on a lot with a variety of clients. It's good to be in a studio environment. More about the studio later. Makerviews has always been about connection. There's energy in shared passions and fulfillment in sharing those passions with others. Sharing others' stories has always been the basis of Makerviews. The Music Makers season just made sense. It's only natural as my life and work, both personally and professionally, has taken me back to music. I've been a musician since I was 9 years old, and it's really good to be back in music in a big way. This season features conversations with other musicians and artists, and they're sharing advice on touring, dive into their album and song production and some recording process breakdowns. Of course, it also covers well-being as a musician, finances or funding as a musician, and just a lot more. There's a lot of great information to get from each episode, so I hope you'll stick around, spread the word, and I really hope you'll appreciate this new season. You can reach out to me via email, scott@makerviews.com. Send in any guest nominations or for any other outreach. Let's kick off the season. I believe that everyone is a maker, so get out there and make things.
What I need now is less talking about the past, more letting the moon knock me back, and just watching the whole sky change.
This first episode of The Music Makers features Maya de Vitry, whose songs you're hearing throughout this episode. Maya is based in Nashville, originally from Pennsylvania. She is a singer-songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer, and her imprint is Mad Maker Studio. So what better way to kick it off than with Maya de Vitry? She's truly an all-around creative individual and maker. Here's my conversation with Maya de Vitry.
It's the real one I'm building inside. I need more time just to water desire.
Thanks for being on the show. Got Maya de Vitry here. You're based in Nashville now, I believe, from PA originally.
Yes.
Just tell us a bit about yourself, if you would.
Yeah, I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So that's like south central Pennsylvania, like toward the Philadelphia side of Pennsylvania, not the Pittsburgh side. A lot of farmland. And I lived there for the first 18 years of my life. And I've lived a couple places since, but most of that time has been in Nashville, Tennessee, where I've been for the past 10 years.
Awesome. And currently now you're doing your own singer-songwriter solo career, but you've been in Stray Birds, right? That was kind of the start. Was that right when you moved to Tennessee, or?
So I started the Stray Birds with two other people who were in my hometown in Lancaster. And so when we got started, we were all still living in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And then we actually Me and one of the stray birds moved to Asheville, North Carolina first, and
Hmm.
then Nashville, Tennessee. And the other, he still lives in Pennsylvania. So, yeah, by the time I got to Nashville, I was already in like a full time touring project with that band. So I was like, I didn't really go through the thing of like moving to Nashville and not knowing anybody and
Mm.
um, kind of trying to cut my teeth as a singer songwriter here. It was more like I was cutting my teeth, like touring all the time, like year round, just being on the road with that band. And so I had some friends here already, just from people I knew from like music festivals and being in that band. So it was kind of nice to move here and already feel like a small sense of community. And then it's changed over
Nice.
time as I've, as things have changed. But yeah, that's
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I've even had some friends from Western Montana move that direction, and it's always seems super daunting, right? But luckily, you
yeah.
had some established friends, and yeah,
Yeah, I think it can be really daunting to, especially to like move to a place that has such a concentration of people doing a thing that you kind of want to do. But I think for me, being in that band, the Stray Birds, for like 7 years and kind of having some of the early experiences I had in the music industry, like being on a record label and having a manager and having a booking agent, like having, these kind of a team that is like working for you. Um, that that gave me a lot of clarity when I kind of started over and started doing a solo singer songwriter thing. and
nice.
and now I'm just a lot more DIY kind of, and like, not, there's a lot of people in Nashville who I think, they really do want some of those things and kind of are like hoping that those people can help them make things happen for them. But I think because I've sort of been through some of those experiences, I'm really of the mind now, like, I'm just going to go make things happen. I just need to show up and I can wear a lot of these different hats. And I actually really enjoy wearing the different hats. So
Awesome.
that's definitely like a difference in like kind of that first era of that first band and what I do now.
I mean, of course, I hear that and it resonates with Makerviews, the DIY entrepreneurial creative mentality. I was noticing actually on your recent releases. Tell me about Mad Maker Studio. So you established that, and that's just
Yeah.
kind of your holding publishing company, or yeah, how does Mad Maker Studio fit in?
Yeah, so that's my record label, and so that is just the that's like the hat that I put on, or like the mindset that I get in when I am making some of those decisions that are like, okay, how are we going to do the artwork for this? We've done the music, but now how do we do the artwork? What's the layout? Do I work with a designer? Am I doing it myself? Which parts am I like bringing other people in to help me with? How am
Yeah,
I what's the order of the songs that are going to come out? Is this the first thing that people hear? When is the release date? What is the calendar? What's the timeline? Like all of those things that a record label would decide. I just, starting with my very first release adaptations in 2019, I just decided I want to be the record label and I want to take that on and make those decisions. And so, and I own my publishing also. So I do have a publishing administrator um, through Domino Publishing Company is who I work with. And they do sort of the administration. Like if I have a co-write with somebody, like a song that I've written that ends up on somebody else's album, like they'll kind of help me to get the paperwork done and make sure everything's registered right. And um,
nice.
that's really helpful. But yeah, I wanted to have, I wanted to be really hands on with stuff. And like, like I very hands on with like designing all the t-shirts and the merch. And I like, I'm folding the t-shirts and I'm shipping, um, records off. Like I have my postage scale right here
Yeah,
for everything that I ship. If you're ordering something from me, it's coming from my physical hands. So that's an intimacy with my with like all layers of the work that I wanted to have. I didn't
Hmm.
want to, have somebody else like being like, okay, thanks for sending us the music. It's going to come out in June, and these are the ideas we have around that. Like I've experienced that, and that can be really cool, but that's not what I wanted anymore.
Yeah. I think, it's clear. That's nice that you have been through that, and now you have the opportunity to redo it in the way that's where you're not beholden to someone else. I'm curious, just kind of as you pulled up the scale, and so this
Yeah.
is home base for you. Do you take me into the production process a little bit? Maybe for your latest album, The Only Moment, are you booking, and however much detail you want to get into how it's funded, whether that's tour base, etc. But
Yeah.
are you doing some recording DIY at home and then booking studio for overdubs, or what's that like, given the DIY ethos?
Yeah. So for this, the record just before The Only Moment, Violet Light, we actually did record that here at the house in the basement. Me and my partner Ethan is sort of became an engineer at like while we were recording that, because that was during the pandemic. So that one was especially DIY. But for The Only Moment, um, I wanted to work in a studio and have people be able to play live. And like I already had the batch of songs, and a lot of them we had played live locally in like, you know, bars and um, local spots. And so I had like a core band that I wanted to record with. And a really good friend of mine, Alex Wilder, works at a studio in Gallatin, Tennessee, which is about a 45-minute drive from where I live. And it's a really incredible private studio that belongs to Mike Elizondo, who is a
Mm.
very, very highly regarded uh, producer and songwriter. And Mike was so generous with letting us use the studio on the weekends, because Mike only needs it Monday through Friday. And so it's like a world class recording studio. But so my friend Alex works there Monday through Friday. And then part of the perk of working for Mike at this studio is that Alex has access if he wants on the weekends to kind of work on his own projects or invite his friends in. And so Alex had invited me to come and, make something at the studio. And I was like, great, I want to make a full length record. Let's do it. So, and um, I had, this is the first time I was producing a record myself, like a full length thing from start to finish, like seeing the songs through, like, choose, like not only writing the songs, but what, choosing the songs that live together on the album, and being involved in what we'd call pre-production, which is like um, just thinking about like planning for when we actually go into the studio and we're there with, the microphones are up, and like what's the order of the songs we're going to be doing, and how are we recording them? Am I singing live with the band? Are things more separate? And so I got to be involved with like every layer and every step of that. And we started in 2021. And one of the things that made this possible was doing it over a long period of time, and not being like, oh my gosh, I need like $10,000 right now, or like I need, $15,000 to get all of this done, because like every step costs a certain amount of money, and paying the musicians. So it was like going into the studio, paying the musicians for 2 days on a Saturday and a Sunday in like June of 2021 is when we started the album. And
Wow.
so June of 2021, there were 2 days that we went in and recorded like 2/3 of the record. And then we went in on another day at the end of July that summer and recorded another few songs. And then um, I like took away 2 songs and added 2 songs, me just playing solo, like maybe 2 years later. And then in all this space, like in between, I was able to go in at my like sort of like whenever my schedule allowed and Alex's schedule, like if we had a Saturday where we were both around, I could say like, let's go and work on this record. And I could really like simmer all these ideas and have lived with the rough recordings that we'd made and think, okay, I was really thinking about writing a string part for If They Feel Like Wings. Like what, like I play violin, so I've never written a string part. If I just need time to like think about what that would be and try to write it. So on my own time, I would like write the part and then go in and then track the different layers of violin with him. And so all of this stretched over like just so much time. And I think um that's part of the like joy for me in doing it this way, is that it like no part of the process ever feels overwhelming financially, because it's not ever like this crushing like huge number all at once. It's stretched over, like in the case of this record, like nearly 4 years.
Mm.
And that's really helpful, and also really helpful to make decisions slowly uh, about something. And I didn't ever feel like I was responding to like make make something that people want like right now or something. Like I wasn't feeling pressure like, okay, like if I don't get this out by next summer, these songs aren't going to be relevant or something. Like
Mm.
there was no like pressure behind that, or like I need to get them out really fast so that I can tour. And also I put it aside fully for blocks of time to take on other production projects, like which is also how I funded finishing this record, is by doing this kind of production but for other people. So like Joel Timmons, who plays guitar in my touring band, hired me to produce a full-length record for him. So I suddenly was getting paid to go to this same studio and hang out on the weekends with Alex. Alex is engineering and I'm producing. And I put my project aside, and now Joel is paying me to be, shepherding his project and
Yeah.
helping him realize his project. And so then I'm getting those payments and then started putting that towards like, okay, cool. Now I can hire this harmony singer, Phoebe, that I want for a day and have her sing on all these songs. So I
Yeah.
think it was a combination of just like a long period of time, and just giving myself the space to make these decisions over time and not rush anything for any specific deadline.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you sharing that. It's for other artists that are going to hear this, that's going to be super validating because I mean myself even, and I ask about the recording studio and the production process cuz as I shared with you on before the call, that's what I'm like fixated on right now. I literally just bought a recording studio downtown Missoula. I've been working in and around the space since 2009, but with that, kind of the funny just brief aside is I came in here to record my originals. I'm a musician too. A year ago, and I'm beating myself up that I don't have it out. It's like
Mm.
it's only been a year. I think there's these self-imposed pressures that, a self-imposed pressure that artists can kind of place on themselves. So the pros and cons of the label, but also the pros and cons of independence, but you slowing down, taking the time you needed while reinvesting. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You're doing this side production work and reinvesting. Really cool to hear into that story. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it's kind of grown from there. So there's another project I took on, a production project that's just about to be in final mixing, of just about to go to mastering, really.
Hmm.
After this feedback, for an artist named Shelby Means, and then an artist named Hannah DeLynn. We were about finished with overdubs and adding some instruments to hers, and that's going to go to mixing soon. And so it's just kind of, that's become a new part of my creative life, is getting to like just like realizing that those are skills that I have, like, that are really, really like specific skills of like sitting with another artist in there, because I've had to do it with myself, and also I've been able to work with great producers who can, be sitting with me and kind of sifting through the songs and like trying to find like what are the 10 songs that really like
Mm.
work, and what's the order, like how can we put ourselves in the shoes of the listeners and kind of take them on a journey through this record from top to bottom, and like what, how do we sequence the songs and like things like that, and who are the players that we can invite into the room and hire that are going to bring these things to life. And so all of that has been a huge part of me being able to um, you know piece together living in making music, because it's like I'm doing the touring stuff, but um, there's now a lot more that's going on other than touring. Like touring is definitely like, I think it always felt really, really like kind of like my hands are tied or something to own, to
Mm.
be relying on like my art. Like I'm gonna be a solo artist now. Okay, I'm gonna like make my stuff and also tour it. Like, I mean, honestly, like I love music. I love I love music just in general, like more than I love my own stuff that I'm like. I don't only love my own stuff, like I love
Right.
making my records, but it's really fulfilling to like write a song with somebody that's going to end up on their record. It's really fulfilling to workshop songs with somebody and coach them into like an exquisite vocal performance
Yeah.
that then like helps to them to clarify like what they want to put into the world. And so that's just like, honestly, this is something that I, deep in my soul, like I wanted when I was in that other band, the Stray Birds, but I didn't know. Like I felt very confined in many ways in that chapter of my life, but I didn't know that this is how it would kind of like bloom when I was given this space to be a solo artist. And like I didn't realize that being a solo artist meant being so collaborative in so many directions, and that I could actually um, just basically show up as myself in all these different ways. So yeah, it's not I think it's really it's really just like wild to me. Like I would get really I would not be happy if I was just like, I don't know, had people like telling me every day like, okay, now Maya, your next appointment as Maya de Vitry is to go do this thing, play this song for this
Right.
person, like be like, cool, I want to hear some other people's music for a little while. It keeps it fresh.
Yeah, honestly, it's what you explained. I mean, in that process of being the creative, it's just interesting. I'm just seeing a lot of parallels to myself and kind of mutually seeing, I'm not all in on the, more in on the business front of things and the production and what you explained around. I've had clients in here, the fulfillment gained from exactly what you just spoke to. They do a take, they're not like in the playback. You coach them on vocals. And I'll be the first to say I'm not very classically trained. Everything's just kind of intuitive by ear. My dad was a musician. That's kind of just how it was handed down. But um, yeah, the fulfillment from those type of moments in studio producing is real. I mean, for those that haven't experienced that, it's really rewarding. And so that was cool to hear.
Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, and I think the timing thing too, where you were saying you felt like you start to feel like the pressure or something to release something, and I can kind of see that with other people that I work with too, like the desire to kind of just, yeah, like pushing and pulling against that of like wanting to sort of be patient with the work and this kind
Yeah.
of sacred time where you are just like in the sandbox kind of with it, like before you have all these other people like involved. And I'm always just like, remember to savor this time, like that this is not, it's not something to be like hurried through and rushed through, and like we just have to get to the part where other people get to, it's not real until other people see it or listen to it or something. It's like, no,
Right.
no, like this is the well, like the maker, like this is the making of it. We
Yeah.
are making the thing right now, and just to savor that as like, that is it. This is like the top of the mountain. Because sometimes it can be so like, until you can kind of like bust up the delusions a little bit, like it can be so like kind of um just, I don't know, like so so difficult. Like I don't know like a better word for it right now, but just like, if when you suddenly put yourself out there, or you put your work out there, and you're just like, wait, I'm still the one who cares about this the most. Like
Yeah.
it's not like suddenly your work is like so relevant. Like it takes time for your work to be relevant and internalized by people, and for it to be like,
Yeah.
I'm so honored that my writing and my songs are like a part of people's lives now, and have like slowly trickled into people's lives, like gently, like water over rocks kind of thing, so gently. And that, I don't take any of that for granted, but that was not like an immediate feeling, it's like, just takes time um for like, people are so busy, and like basically we're all like at capacity all the time for like what we can take in, and like, our jobs and our kids and whatever is going on, and we're just like trying to hold it together to like have
Yeah.
new art and new music, or new just, things to like be in our like, enter into our souls, is like a big ask, I think. So we just have to be like gentle and patient sometimes with
Yeah.
that.
I think that this comes across in, well, the entire album, just beautiful. I mean, amazing. Definitely to the listeners, check it out. It's so your music, hearing some of the production, some of, like you say, putting it out and people living with it. It's amazing. I mean, moments from soft whispers vocally, your vocal is like the shining star throughout. Then again, being, those of us that are musicians listen to some of those bluesy lead riffs are just insane, or the organ, or I mean, all of it. Yeah, it's just from whispers to belts. It flows, it grooves. Definitely check it out, listeners. But I think that for me, watching the whole sky change is where it's at. And it
Mm,
kind of gets into what you're saying of this, this pondering of like, hey, I think I need a little bit less of that and more of this. And I want to reground myself and feel, you know, in the moment. And I did have to note, I think it feels like that's likely your tearjerker song, like that you have in your back pocket. You play it, it's vulnerable, it's raw, it's stripped down. The production of it, you acoustic, the organ towards the end.
yeah.
But that less letting the darkness haunt me and me knowing it's part of belonging,
Mm.
super validating. And I may be sorry if I didn't get that totally right, but
No,
it's,
no, you spot on.
yeah. Tell me I guess, a bit more about that song, how it came about. It just seems only natural, kind of with what you're saying in terms of everybody's at capacity, but this song just feels really grounded to me.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one that I added later. So this didn't happen in those early sessions in 2021. I think I didn't even write it until 2023, in January of that year. And so yeah, the rest of their album had just been sitting there, and I knew that it, because I'm, part of the responsibility of being the producer, is like, okay, is the content all there, or like, is it actually done? And I just knew that it wasn't, and that there was, I was like, I think there's still like a song that needs to be on this, that I just haven't actually written yet. And I like that was of that yeah, of that feeling, like, just that was so honest and vulnerable, and just like, okay, but like, we're in the heart of, something to come, like deep in the heart of the album, we're like, we're on this journey, we're deep in there, and then it's like, oh, oh yeah, okay, this, like, what do I actually really want to say? And if there's one song that I want people to kind of come away with this, like, if they're gonna connect with one, and it's gonna like be, healing in some way. Like, what is the most precise way that I could communicate that? Was like but it was coming from like a really honest place too, of just like feeling really, really, um, it was January. It was like I was in a bit of a spiral, just like in my head, in my, just having like trouble communicating something to my partner, just like trouble articulating something, feeling just like, especially like, I mean, as a woman, like you go through like super, super like highs and lows like every month. And I was just like feeling this especially like crystal clear kind of like bottom of like, wow, like I can sort of like see the ocean floor of like my inner world kind of, and just like, wow, this is like all the stuff that is like trickled down here, and I'm like seeing it even if I don't want to. And just yeah, just wanted to be able to share that. And like as soon as I started playing it for people, I I was like, oh, this is like, I'm not alone in this. Like, because people would, that's the song that they'll come and talk to me about. Like
Yeah.
you, like at the end of the show, they'll just be like, I was doing okay until you played that song. And now I didn't realize I needed to cry tonight,
Yeah.
or I didn't realize that I hadn't yet like started to grieve this person in my life, or, or these things. And when I recorded it, I just recorded it on acoustic guitar and vocals, just like singing and playing them together. And then I just kind of put it aside, and that was just on one of those, Saturdays that I went up to hang out with Alex at the studio, and put it aside. And I was like, I'm not really sure what to do with that now. I don't know what to add to it. Do I add something really dramatic? Do I add something? Because I was like, I could add a layer of something. Most of the songs on the album were just a live
Right.
band playing all together, electric guitar and electric bass and drums. And we're all, there's the give and take and the conversation that's like happening naturally. And so that's just what it is. There's not a whole lot of like shaping to do or adding or something. But with this one, I was like, wow, I could do anything with it. It's just vocals and guitar. And then I went on this tour. I was in Norway and Sweden and Denmark. It was the following winter. So the winter, January 2024. I still hadn't committed to like the album is finished. So a full year passed. And I was in Northern Europe, like Scandinavia, opening some shows for my friend John Craigie, who is a songwriter who is based in Portland, Oregon. And I was playing that song on the tour, and it just was feel like in most of these venues there were candles burning, because that's just part of the style of the Scandinavian clubs. And it was very cozy and just deep darkness, because like the sun was setting at like 3 p.m. or whatever. And as I was playing the song and as people were connecting with it, I was realizing like, wait, maybe it doesn't need really anything else. Maybe it just kind of
Doesn't.
needs like the
Yeah.
feeling of like, maybe just the feeling of like wind, or the feeling of an echo, something spacious. And so then I went back, when I came back to Nashville, I went up with Alex and I said, Alex, can you just sort of play this sort of um, idea, this sort of sketch of a melody, this echo right about here, enter into the song. And so then he, added the Wurlitzer so gently on that. But I didn't really have the confidence that that was all it needed until I was playing it live and feeling this song in the room with people, and just like, oh wow, it's enough. I think it's just enough as it is. And so that was and once I had that clarity, I knew that, and I was like, okay, that's enough. That's really all I have to add to the album. And then I need to add Phoebe harmony singing on like 2 more songs, and then it can come out. So let's say I was literally in Ireland still on that tour. So this was like the end of January 2024, and I'm writing to my booking agent like, hey, the album's going to come out in July. I just decided because
Nice.
I knew I could calculate in my head like, okay, it's almost like I just wrote to Mad Maker Studio, the record label, and I was like, okay, I'm about to send you the final album. And they were like, great, we'll slot it in for July. But it all kind of just, it was, putting this hat on, putting this hat on. Like, can I get it together for that? I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Put it out in July and do a tour in the fall. So that's sort of that
Yeah.
song was sort of, yeah, just lingering around and kind of holding up the process in a way, because I was like, I don't know, is the album done? Let's just let it sit for another year and see if it feels done next year.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, that's really interesting to hear that actually that was the one that I think, like you said, where you landed with it, kind of the dichotomy too of the reverb of
Yeah.
vocal and strings, but the dry nature of the keys when it comes in. It's really awesome. Well produced, well thought through. I'm a huge Bon Iver fan, and
Mm,
he just put out very stripped back. I mean, more so than 2008's For Emma, or yeah, For Emma Forever Ago. And I don't know. I'm all about close mic, vulnerable performances. As much as I love, the production of big leads and effects, and so that one
yeah.
really comes across. And yeah, I think there's just a desire. It's cool too to hear the moody nature of the Nordics and
Yeah.
how that came across.
Yeah.
Everybody's got that desire. The state of the world is just, it's wild. So yeah, kudos on that song. Really amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. It was worth the wait.
Can come along for the ride.
Here's the ad spot, and I'm actually sponsoring myself. So, similarly to how NPR puts out All Songs Considered, for example, well, the Recording Center is putting out the Makerviews Music Makers podcast. So I'm taking the remote guest interviews and doing all the post-production things, running the clips through compressors, doing noise reduction, and of course, you can expect to see some in-person guests here from the studio in the future. So let me take just a second to tell you about the Recording Center. Since 1986, the Recording Center has been Missoula's longest-running recording studio. I bought the business this year in 2024 after partnering with the previous owner, who has retired. It's an extremely vibey place with a lot of vintage gear and a lot of great history. So to wrap this up, if you're needing any recording done, come to the Recording Center. I can even convert tapes to digital, or I can even duplicate CDs and DVDs. There's a lot of work that happens here in person, and then as well, if you need any mixing, mastering, editing, and other services remotely, please go to therecordingcenter.com or do it the old-fashioned way and call the studio phone at 406-721-4172. Thank you. Now let's get back to the show. You've mentioned touring, and I've been curious as somebody who hasn't necessarily done that, but knowing friends who have, like, how do you cope? I mean, I think especially given that it's DIY, you mentioned a booking agent, but so is it the team? What does the team look like? How do you cope? I caught you where we are now. I think you're in between legs. You're going to Northeast US, it looked like next.
Yeah.
Sorry to have missed you in Montana when you came.
Yeah, hopefully I can come back. It was
Yeah, I
really
hope so too. I
it's
mean,
really
what'd you think of Missoula?
I love it. I really love it.
Do you?
Yeah.
I've heard, I haven't been to Asheville. Of course, I've been to Portland, Seattle, but I've heard that Asheville, Portland, Seattle, Missoula, it's all kind of got this, similar creative vibe.
Totally.
But
Yeah, yeah, I hope I can get back there. I love the part of the country I got to go to this fall. Like, it started with like Boise, Idaho, and then
mm,
or Salt Lake City, Boise, and then Spokane and Missoula and Bozeman. Those were all places I'd never played before, so that was really,
yeah,
really cool. Um,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, touring. Oh, so the team is so Lori is my booking agent. So like anytime anyone wants to book a show, I can just give them her email and she will kind of work out all the details with them. But Lori and I will, put our heads together on like, okay, we want to go to the Northeast. We want to try to hit these cities and towns. This is like an idea of the routing, like maybe start in Portland, Maine and end in DC or something. And like, what is that going to look like? What are the different options? We have to think through like, how many tickets can we sell in this like town? Like, agents will call them markets. So it's like, in this market, like how many, do we think we would play in a room for 100 people? Do we think we could do like a space that would, have a capacity of 200, how, and trying to build relationships with the promoters and like the venues in each place too, so that, because it's really tough. Like I always tell artists like and musicians who are just starting out, I'm like, hey, don't beat yourself up. Like it takes a really, really long time to get 100 people to choose to buy a ticket to see you on a Wednesday night. Like a really long time. That's like 100, because even if you have 30 people choosing to come and see you play, like that's so many people, that are like choosing to come and spend 2 hours of undivided attention in a finite life, like with you and your thing. And so it just takes a long time. And it, like, I'm really lucky to have a booking agent who is really patient with she's patient and she's smart with the pacing of how to do that, and trying to, we don't want to burn bridges with promoters. We don't want to like play in a room that's like too big and disappoint them because, they don't have enough bar sales or they can't even pay their staff that night. But it's always like a big risk for me to go out because my expenses are really, really high too, to go out there. It's like sometimes it's a flight across the country or a rental car. It depends, touring it's just like ups and downs, and it's like usually if you look at it one day at a time, it doesn't make any sense. And then if you look at it over like a month, you're like, oh wow, I guess we did have this night that was really good over here. And then that kind of balances out this night where there were only 7 people there, because over here we actually sold 150 tickets in this town. And then I had a really good merch night, and for some reason everybody bought hoodies in Seattle. And then like I had a guy come up to my show in Portland, Oregon the other day, and the first guy at the merch table, he was like, hi, how do I give you money? I just want to donate. I don't want anything. How do I give you money? And I was like, I don't know. He's like, here, just pretend I bought 3 hoodies. And so I like tapped it into my cash register Square Reader thing. And he's just like, there, $150. There you go. I don't want the hoodies. I just want you to have $150. I was like, okay, thank you. And he had traveled from Vancouver, BC to come see the show in Portland. And then the next guy in line had come from Alaska. And I was like, wow. Like, cause he was like, yeah, you don't come to Alaska, but I'm a big fan. And I had been to Alaska one time for some shows, but years ago. So there's these like highs of like, whoa, 2 people in a row who are just like, how can I give you money? And like, I've come from Alaska, And then there's the nights where you're just like, wow, this basically cost me $500 to do this show, between like what I'm paying the band and the lodging and, all of those things. But it evens out, or you hope that it at least evens out. And sometimes you come home with money, and for me, it's never a lot, because because I'm not doing it on a big scale. But the other thing about having a small team that is, even when I come home with some money, even if it's not a lot, I'm not splitting the pie with like 20% here, 20% here, 20% here, to all these different people who are involved in a big team. There's a percentage of the actual show income that goes to the booking agency. But other than that, it depends. Like if I have personally hired people to come on the road with me to play in my band, then I have to pay them the day rate we've agreed to. But touring is like definitely hard. It's one of the hardest things is, I think, just the kind of like keeping my cool sometimes when people are like, wow, this is just, you're living the dream. Like, this is so, wow, like you're on permanent vacation, or like, it's definitely like the hardest job ever that I've done. Like I don't know. It's definitely like, it is the longest hours, is such like the labor that you're doing out there is so invisible for like almost all of the time, and then you're on stage performing for this really small amount of time. Especially like if I go out and I'm opening a show for somebody, it's like I might be working for hours and hours that day between like driving and maybe getting online and doing admin and doing like work as either a producer for somebody else or admin for, record label stuff or like whatever I'm doing. And then driving maybe like up to 6 hours, getting to
Wow.
the venue hours ahead of time so I can load in. You have to set up the whole stage, set up the merch, basically like set up a pop up store, and then maybe play for only 30 minutes or 45 minutes if I'm like opening the show. And
Wow.
then run the merch table, like be there talking to people, like, taking credit cards, doing all of that, maybe sitting in with the band and playing a song with them, with the main act, like an hour and a half later. Um, and then you're tearing down at the end of the night. And packing everything up and loading it out, and it's just really full on because you're never actually coming home at night and like you're not in your own space. So sometimes you're just
Right.
like, okay, what I mean, the other day, like I was taking trains on the West Coast to avoid driving because I didn't want to rent another car, and I didn't want to have to like drive this 5 hour drive to LA by myself because I was just like, I can get more done and just rest my body a little bit if I sit on the train. The trade off is that you have to get the train really early. So I like got up at like 5:15 a.m. and 5:30 a.m., caught a 6:11 a.m. train, got to LA at 11:45 a.m. All I had eaten that morning was like some lettuce and strawberries that I had like in the fridge at the Airbnb. But I was just like, I didn't really want to eat any of the train food. I'd already tried it the day before, but since I didn't have a rental car that morning, I didn't have a chance to like go and like buy food at the store. There's just those little, I don't say any of that to complain. I'm just like the
No, it's
the dots of like getting here to there. It's like it's so relentless. It's a relentless connecting of dots that sometimes each dot is like, you're like, oh wow, I'm like, this is going to be inconvenient that I can't eat at this time, or wow, this is going to be, it's the relentlessness and the pace of doing that, and then having to kind of
yeah.
get on stage and deliver and be like fully present and fully in your body and fully, um, just like, okay, now I drop into like being musical. doing,
Wow.
doing the music job. But so much of the job is very like physical, of like actually just physically traveling from place to place and like getting yourself like fed and having enough water and like sleeping in a different bed every night, and like, and trying not to like exhaust your social energy because you're like in this weird limbo of like accepting help from other people and also needing rest from
Right.
the help that people are offering to you, because you just maybe fully need. That was especially when I was first starting out. That was really, really hard sometimes. In the Stray Birds, we would stay with somebody who was like offering to, maybe they like were helping, they were a volunteer with like the concert that we were playing. We would go and stay with them. But it was kind of like as soon as we got back to their house at 11 p.m., which is maybe the first time we've had like downtime of the day, and they kind of want to like hang out and like maybe even
Yeah.
jam a little bit, or like, have kind of ask us a lot of questions, and it's like, I actually need to go to bed so bad right now. Like it's just not really typical to have people like follow you home from work. But what if the people are offering you a place to stay? Then you're actually following them home from your work, and now maybe you need to hang out with them. So there's these really strange like economies like that happen within the arts of like, okay, I think I can accept your help, but I also need to go to bed.
That makes so much sense. And I couldn't help but think throughout that, with Makerviews, the audience being wide and this season focused on the music makers. Yet I've gone to festivals like the Red Ants Pants here in Montana. And it's an arts and crafts and makers market as well. And I think that the, like you said, physically your body, and they probably have a trailer as well. And
Yeah.
it's just everything you spoke to it. And folks saying, this glorified, like, oh, you're living the dream. I mean, there's a lot of potential imbalance to it if you're not careful. So that's why I was curious. Thanks for, I suppose specifically when I said, how do you cope? Are there things I know for myself and my own anxiety and things like that? Meditation's helpful. Like, how do you ground while on the road, while maybe even before performance? You've done sound check, like you said, you have to get into that zone. Yeah, what are some of those kind of helpful tips to other artists? And you've been doing this how many years now? I guess, a decade plus. So,
Yeah. It's been, I think the grounding part of it and like sort of keeping your nervous system um like I guess just like not letting the roller coaster of the day like just like it's so mental. Like it's so because the day and the unknowns of the road and the unknowns of like how many people are showing up at the show and are they talking through your entire set,
mm,
are they even like receiving the music you're putting out there, like if you start to get bristly at that and kind of like as if this is like yeah, like if your nervous system is like freaking out, and riding, if you kind of go on this roller coaster ride of the day, it's going to be like even more exhausting, I think. But
right.
like I think so I for me it has been a lot of like at first it was just like saying like mantras to myself or like kind of things to my bandmates before I'd go on stage. Like I don't necessarily say it every time anymore, but for the first couple years of getting into the groove of touring again after the band, I really had to come up with this phrase, which was um, after the show, I just want to know if I've helped you to feel more free. So
Mm,
that's like my commitment to myself. Like if I am finishing the show and I'm just like being like really mean to myself, that's kind of like, okay, that's not why I'm here. I don't want to be like really critical of my bandmates and be like I want them to feel freed up by playing the music with me. I don't want them to feel like I was like judging them or that they did something wrong or that I think they need to be perfect. I don't need them to be perfect. I just need them to be present in like what we're doing. And the audience, like I just want them to feel more free. I don't need them to like me. I just need them to feel more free. Whether that like whatever that is. And that's like it,
mm,
when that is the intention, then it's a lot easier for me to just like stay in like a steady place and be able to like give from a more consistent place for like a whole tour or a whole season, like months, of doing this. It's less about like, oh my gosh, this was a good night because I played to 1,000 people and they all loved me. And then the next night, you're like, I played to 7 people, and 4 of them were talking the whole time about this other person's breakup. And the sound was awful, and no, like, there was feedback. And so that was an awful night. And so now I need to be like in a pit of despair. It's
mm,
like somehow making it so that, like, if after the show, I just want to know if I've helped you to feel more free. If that's like my space, if that's like my core, intention for both of those experiences, and I can kind of like level it all out, that those external things are so much less of a factor. And then combining
yes.
with that with literally just getting on the ground. Like I don't do this all the time anymore, but there was a time where I would, especially when I was starting to play solo a lot, like being the only person on the stage, um, maybe opening up a show for a band at like a big theater, and I would just physically like get on my yoga mat like on the ground and just like face down, and like sometimes do it like on the stage, kind of just be like, okay, like I'm just totally on the ground here,
Yeah.
and like this is the sound check. I still have like an hour to eat, and then I'm going to come back and play the real show. But right now, I can just remember that like I had this time of just being fully like on the ground. and just this is the ground, this is the physical space I'm in. So those it's like the
That's
mindset
awesome.
thing mostly, though.
Yeah, that's well, thank you for sharing. I know that was personal and, those type of things like setting the intention. And I liked how that's kind of open to interpretation, being free. What does that mean to you, to the
Yeah,
audience? Yeah, as well as literally grounding. And yeah, I appreciate you sharing that.
sure.
Well, thank you so much, Maya. It's been honestly a pleasure meeting, chatting. I hope the listeners have gleaned a lot from this. I'm sure you have. We've really covered a lot. So be sure to check out any of Maya's. It's Maya de Vitry. Any of her work. It's available streaming everywhere. And where else would you send listeners, Maya?
If you want to have me send you something on my postage scale, you can go to Bandcamp. That's where I sell all the merch. So that's where you get a vinyl record if you want a physical vinyl record, or CDs. Yeah, got the vinyl right here. So
Awesome. Yeah,
yeah,
do that. I'm all about physical. So, I mean, being in the space, this was started in 1986. We still do cassette duplication. We don't have a vinyl lathe, but
cool.
I think analog, physical. Yeah, so do that. Go to Bandcamp. Anywhere else, of course, you're on social, right?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook, and I have a website which has some. That's a good place to go to see all the tour dates that are coming up. It's just mayadevitry.com. It's got the tour dates. It's got lots of different videos, like live videos and music videos and things like that.
Great. I'll put all that in the show notes. And yeah, thanks again for being on the show.
Thanks
Really
for
great
having
meeting.
me. Great to meet you too.